Okay. It is 6 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. First, I'd like to acknowledge we're in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We have looking for approval of the agenda. There's one item, though, that maybe we can put under new business if council's agreeable, just on terms of public engagement. That sound reasonable? Okay, we'll put that on a new business and look for an approval of the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Duggan, seconded by Councillor Sanford. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. And we have some minutes from May 16th, 23rd, and the May 30th. Does anyone wish to move those minutes as presented? Moved by Councillor Birtles. Yeah, did I say the 23rd? Okay. 16th, 23rd, and 30th. Third, okay. Councillor Birtles, Councillor Duggan seconds that motion. Are there any errors or omissions to note? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. No public hearings tonight, presentations. We have correspondence. We have petitions submitted by the Friends of Blockhouse Hill. We have correspondence from the Lunenburg Heritage Society about the proposed Blockhouse Hill development. And just so council knows, I did meet with those folks. So we did have a meeting with some representatives of the Heritage Society to address their concerns. We had a meeting earlier as well with two representatives of the Friends of Blockhouse Hill as well. So we did have some discussions with them as well. And third, there is a joint statement here. It calls that release for Coastal Protection Act regulations, the Ecology Action Center. And there's a motion there for us to agree to sign the Ecology Action Center as presented. So is anyone there willing to move that motion? That's usually not a problem. Okay, so Councillor Halverson moves that motion. Is there a seconder?
I'll second it, but can I also make a statement towards 6.1?
Absolutely.
Thanks.
So we'll deal with this. We have a motion on the floor. So is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. And Councillor Birtles, you'd like to make a comment on 6.1?
Yes, please. Through the chair, with regards to the Friends of Blockhouse Hill and their campaign, it's incredibly frustrating to see it spill over to our local school and our home for specialized care. These situations are provincially run or overseen, and it's not to be the proper forum for a municipal problem. The fact that the Friends of Blockhouse Hill deem this acceptable is deeply troubling, and maybe further investigation into this group should be taken to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future. These are our children and our seniors. This should not be the place.
Thank you, Councillor Birtles. Okay. Any more comments or discussions on the correspondence? Councillor Sanford?
There isn't correspondence to this, but I'm thinking that it should be raised under this particular section. And that is, I think it's important, and I just want us to recognize the volunteers and the work of our Lunenburg Fire Department in this past 10 days. And specifically providing assistance to Shelburne and area fires, and also here in Old Town with the loss of the beautiful home and the protection of others. They've done such an amazing job, and I just didn't want our meeting to pass without us acknowledging and wanting them to know that we're very thankful for the work that they do. Thank you.
Yeah, it's amazing that structure can burn and you look around and it's like there hasn't been a fire there. Yeah, amazing. Yeah, they did a wonderful job. Okay, any business arising from the minutes or unfinished business? No, hearing none. So we have under Nothing other committee minutes, recommendations, reports, or anything like that. So we'll go right into new business.
Can we ask people in the audience not to speak while we're meeting? It's very distracting to hear what's going on.
If you could, please. Yeah, I understand that. Okay, under new business, we have 9.1 awarding Blockhouse Hill contract. There's a motion on the floor. Is there anything the staff would like to bring forward before we put the motion out?
Thank you, Chair. For the record, my name's Arthur McDonald. I'm the Director of Community Development. I do have a report in front of council this evening for the awarding of the Blockhouse Hill RFP. The town of Lunenburg issued a request for a proposal for design schemes to develop Blockhouse Hill on February 8th and submissions deadline of March 7th. Staff feels Brian McKay Lyons Sweet Apple Architects proposal is the strongest because it combines international renowned expertise with local knowledge and community presence and is within the town's allocated budget. The report in front of council this evening provides a project scope, a review process of the candidate submissions for the RFP, outline of the proposals and the pros and cons. And there is a section dealing with the potential development of Blockhouse Hill has received media attention for council's record on May 9th of this year. The Friends of Blockhouse Hill presented a presentation in front of council. The presentation requested the council pause the proposed development of Blockhouse Hill in Upper King Street, citing among other reasons that more public consultation is needed. And they question how the development of Blockhouse Hill may affect the Old Town Lunenburg World Heritage status. However, staff feels that the Brian McKay Lyons Sweet Apple Architects has the best proposal and team of professionals to navigate through the public consultation process with heritage conservation in mind. Brian McKay Lyons is an award-winning architect, and Julian Smith is an accomplished heritage planner who contributed to the drafting of the 2011 UNESCO recommendations on the historic urban landscape. Therefore, in light of the above and the report, staff is recommending that they be approved for this RFP. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Is there any questions for Arthur? Anyone like to move the motion as presented? Moved by Councillor Sanford, seconded by Councillor Halverson. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Sanford?
I just want through the chair to staff, just to note a correction with regards to the section around addressing public concerns. So when we say on May the 9th, 2023, the Friends of Blockhouse Hill, a local volunteer group, the correction should be volunteer group. It's not a local group. The Friends of Blockhouse Hill, I understand, are residents and non-residents. And they are in fact an advocacy group, and using Oxford's definition of advocacy, a public support for recommendation of a particular cause or policy. So to me, that describes Friends of Blockhouse Hill as a group. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Any other discussions on the motion? Councillor Halverson?
I want to thank staff for their work on this. I'm sure it was not easy sifting through all this to find something that met all the criteria that was asked. What I see in front of me here with this proposal, I was having this discussion with someone earlier today and talking about Brian McKay Lyons and Julian Smith. If you're drafting an all-star hockey team, well, we got an all-star proposal team. I mean, these guys, you couldn't ask for better. I mean, Brian McKay's works speaks for itself. I don't think anyone can question his integrity or his dedication to the vernacular style of Lunenburg. Julian Smith, someone who's actually drafted UNESCO recommendations. You know, I'm very impressed with what I'm seeing here. I think I'm excited to see someone like with Julian Smith's credentials, because a lot has been made about will any potential development affect our UNESCO status? And there's no one in this town who can answer that properly, because the only way that question gets answered is once a design is submitted to Parks Canada. So what I see in front of me is two people who will put their best foot forward, put their best efforts forward to make sure the concerns of the community are heard and addressed, heritage is considered. And, you know, this has been a very, very divisive topic. And I think this is an opportunity. I know people are going to make a deal about the amount that's being spent on this. And it's a significant amount, absolutely. But if spending this amount of money, finding out for sure what we're able to do, you know, will it affect our heritage? And being able to put those answers to rest finally, once and for all, and then we can move forward as a community, I think that's invaluable. So I'm very excited. Thank you, staff, for the work. I'm very, very excited about this proposal.
Councilor Duggan?
One of the big things that I would like to see is where it says preserve views of the front and back harbors where feasible. I would like to see that we must preserve the views of the front and back harbors. To me, that's something that we need to guarantee. I think the loss of those views would be, you know, just, I can't see that being beneficial. So that's my one thing. Personally, after, you know, reviewing all of the work that staff have done, it's incredibly thorough, you know, very, very well done. I would like to see the decision delayed until after the upcoming by-election to allow for all council seats to be filled. I think that this decision demands careful thought and attention. I want to provide a fair opportunity for all council members to weigh in on this. And I think delaying the decision until after summer just gives us some space to process and reflect more before moving forward. Just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you, Councilor Duggan. Any other comments on the motion? Okay, well, based on what I can see, I don't think we have anything to worry about the front harbor views being obstructed, because there's no building on that side of the hill anyway. So that should be one easy thing to be looked after. I think the full discussion is when we do have a plan in front of us. So, I mean, I think the council will be full by that time, and it will take them some, you know, obviously some work here to be done. So I would say that the real proposal or the real concept will come for us probably later this fall. I don't know if they have any indicated to us. I think in that around that time frame, is it not, Arthur, when this will come back to us again?
Best case scenario is probably late August, early September.
And then public consultation will start, you know, that process will start from that point forward, right? First comes from council, then it'll go to that, correct?
Well, as part of their design concept, they wish to hold a public workshop. So they're quite anxious to begin the work, and they're quite excited. But before, you know, a design is actually drafted for council to consider, I think it would be definitely the fall.
Okay, thank you, Arthur. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Council Duggan in the negative, but the motion is carried. Next item on the agenda is 9.2 Upper King Street, and then we have the ZAP concept design. So I think we have another report from staff here regarding that.
Thank you very much. Council, tonight we have a report to update you on Upper King Street and ZAP design concepts. For background, on September 15th, 2022, the town awarded the Upper King Street conceptual design project to ZAP Consulting, Inc. They initialized the project with a visionary exercise with the town's management team and produced a visionary report dated October 2022, which is attached as attachment A. The town kept the public informed by producing fact sheets on May 11th, 2022, as well as September 26th, 2022, and they're attached for council's review as attachment B. ZAP have completed their Upper King Street Phase 2 report dated May 2023, which is attached as attachment C. The steepness of Upper King Street has been a considerable design challenge. ZAP considered 4 connectivity options for development of Upper King Street. Complete the grid, Creighton to Cornwallis, Cornwallis to Oxnard, and an in-out cul-de-sac proposal. ZAP found the in and out scenario is the only option that meets engineering and safety standards. ZAP also weighed the cost of building each connectivity option relative to the development potential each affords and found the in and out option the most cost-effective option. ZAP then created 4 development schemes with different densities based on an in and out roadway, evaluating them for residential density yield, park and amenity space, neighborhood compatibility, and infrastructure cost offsets. ZAP seeks council's direction to refine further development of options 4B3 and 4B4. These options include park space and high density or high density hybrid housing, including multi-unit buildings. The refined development options will consist of a detailed site costing, construction costs per square foot, and 2 development agreement proposals for council's consideration. The report goes on and discusses the 4 options that they reviewed and the further development of the in and out options as outlined in the table. Staff wishes to note to council that the surveyor and lawyers involved with migrating the lands are having difficult time due to the nature of the site and the impacts it has with the common lands and the school ground lands, which I believe most of the council members realize the difficulties with migrating the properties. Once the grounds are migrated and development schemes are chosen following a public information session, it is recommended that council consider amending the MPS and LUB, closing portions of Duke Street and King Street reserves, which requires a further survey and legal descriptions, and for the town to follow its land divestiture policy, which also requires a public information meeting, and for council to declare the lands as surplus and obtain an appraisal for the property. So all of that's basically in our land divestiture policy. The options for council this evening is to recommend to ZAP to further develop their recommendation, which is the further development of 4B3 and 4B4. Another alternative option is to accept the visionary report and Upper King Street Phase 2 report and direct ZAP Consulting to finalize a final report with two design concepts further developed with other options as outlined in the report, including the proposed park option for council's consideration. The other option is to refuse the visionary report and the Upper King Street Phase 2 report and advise staff to terminate the contract with ZAP Consulting Inc. Staff is in favor of ZAP continuing to develop the options as outlined in 4B3 and 4B4 as outlined in the report. And that is staff's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Is there any questions of Arthur at this time? I have one question, if no one else has anything to bring out. Arthur, I guess in your opinion or in your department's opinion, do you think it's that we will get a quality development out of that site? You know, if we keep pursuing the 4B3 or 4B4 proposals? Or are we going to chase our tail here a little bit at the end of the day?
It is a very challenging site, no question about it. We would be able to provide further housing options, which are in dire need. We need more affordable housing. We need more accessible housing. Therefore, I think to sit back and do nothing may not be an option. I think we should actually go out and further develop these concepts and see what they look like in the end. I honestly believe that, and I think rather than having the land vacant and not earning yearly assessment and tax revenue for the town is non-sustainable. The location is very close to our sewer treatment plant. We have sewer and water running down Creighton Street. We have a major sewer line at the bottom of the hill. So to maximize those services, we need a return in our investment. So to sit back and do nothing, I don't think is really a practical long-term option or a sustainable option in the long run.
Thank you, Arthur. So the juice is worth the squeeze. Councilor Halverson and then Councilor Sanford.
Thanks, Arthur. I appreciate your insight into that. I gotta be honest. I fully appreciate we need more housing here. The whole reason we're going through all these exercises is to expand the tax base, as we've talked about a million times. And when I see potential 79 units or potential 66 units, I see families moving into our community, and I see seniors being able to downsize and being able to stay in Lunenburg. That's obviously desirable. What I don't like are the designs. I don't like the idea of a cul-de-sac. I feel like it flies in the face of our street grids. I know when we went into this, I think we were hoping for something that would align better with what we've got in Old Town right now and maintain that integrity. And I recognize too that the Oxnard Loop doesn't fall in with that. So it would be I guess it wouldn't be extraordinary to diverge from the street grids, but what if we do want to pursue this? Is the money that we've already paid in the RFP, are we going to get more designs, or we have to pony up for more? And do we know how much that's going to be if we want to try and pursue those alternatives that you're discussing?
They are part of the original contract, so there's no change orders that we're discussing this evening.
Okay, so we wouldn't be spending any more money to get more designs from ZAP at this point.
That is correct. Like their proposal includes a full detail, two options to fully develop two options for council's consideration.
All right, thank you.
Council Sanford?
That was part of my question. I was wondering if it was going to cost us more money to get additional design work done. The other part of it, I think, links to your point, Deputy Mayor Mosher, chasing our tail and when we look at this and looking at it realistically, what can we do? And similar to Councillor Halverson, not so struck with that cul-de-sac and, but I understand some of the challenges presented by the topography of the land, right? I'm wondering, before we do anything, is it possible with what we have at present with the work that's been submitted so far, is it possible for us to enter into, and I guess I'm looking at CAO Doyle thinking, is it possible for us to have a conversation with Parks Canada at this point to talk about and look at with this particular type of a design and the layout, how it's situated on that particular point of land, looking at both the two pieces that Arthur's presenting in 4.3, 4B3 and 4B4. Is it something that they would be able to look at and say, yes, this could work, or no, this couldn't work, however, the park design could work? Like, I'm wondering how far do we have to go? And then based on their feedback, we then, if they say, yes, this could work, then we move forward to get that additional design work done to take to the community.
Through the chair to Councillor Sanford. It's a great question. And as Art mentioned, the further, I don't want to say revisions, but further analysis into design is probably worth the squeeze before we go to Parks Canada. So we have something fully baked. So this is what is being proposed. Does it work or not? And then go from there. I think to go now, although we probably could chat with Parks Canada, it might be a bit premature. But if Art or Hillary have anything to add to they've been key file holders on this one, so I'll let them speak if they have anything to add.
I certainly personally don't have any issues with the lines of communications with Parks Canada, and if it's council wishes, I can share them the visionary report and the phase 2 report with Parks Canada. Yeah, we have a really good communication network opening now, thanks to a lot of work that Hillary has done. And so that I don't see any issue at all doing that, but I know what their comeback might be, that, they really can't comment on these types of concepts until they're more refined. Yeah.
And just to confirm, I mean, the money spent of this RFP regardless, so we may as well follow it through and, have the full design. Would that be correct to assume?
Through the chair to chair, it's accurate. And then, of course, as Art said, we have something fully baked in there to chat with them about. And I think, as Councillor Halverson noted, as well as Sanford, I don't think folks are really crazy about a cul-de-sac in a planning world. But the reality is, if that's the only option, that's the only option. But I want to make sure that we have that fully baked before we say this is it. And then we can choose whether or not we go or not. And we've looked at it every way from Sunday from an engineering perspective to continue that grid pattern from a street network perspective. Through the passive areas, through trails and pathways and green space, we could certainly reflect the grid pattern, but not in street infrastructure. Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor. I don't think we have a mover or a seconder yet. More questions? Absolutely.
Please. So thank you for all the information, because it helps to guide and it helps to give us the direction that we're looking for. So if we're going to go forward to get more in-depth work as a result of that, I realize they're recommending 4B3 and 4B4. I'm wondering though, if it might be more palatable, even though it may not be as economically viable, to look at the two examples going forward being the medium density hybrid, because it could already be accommodated, if I understand correctly, in the context of the current zoning. It could accommodate the medium density development. So I'm wondering if we should be looking at moving forward with a medium density hybrid. So that would be 4B2. And then the high density hybrid, which would be 4B4. And the park is options. And I'm just putting that out there. I'd be keen to hear what others might think of that. And I'm thinking of it in the context of the current zoning. So as not to change, not to have to change the zoning.
So just before Council Halverson come in, maybe Arthur, could you want to comment on that remark first?
Yeah, yes. The contract that we have with ZAP enables two proposals to be further developed. So if there's two options plus the park option, that would mean a third option. So there'll be a change order in order to do the park option, and that means additional funds. Another point I'd like to make is any option 4 will require an amendment to our land use bylaw form zone. Currently, only one main building is enabled per lot. In the medium density zone, we allow 4 dwelling units plus 1 accessory units for a maximum of 5 units. But that's all you can have on one lot. So down the road, I don't have a crystal ball, but I think council would be considering amending the form zone to allow what we call group dwellings or multiple main buildings on a lot.
Thank you, Arthur. Council Halverson?
Thank you. You actually addressed part of my question. We don't have to. I'll back that up. So to build what they're talking about here right now would require us to change the form zone immediately. Yeah, I'm loath to do that where we just went through our process, you know. And, okay, that's really all I do. I think you answered the question already.
Okay, well, we do have a motion suggested on the floor. Is anyone prepared to move that motion? Doesn't appear to. There's other options on that report. Is anyone willing to move those options? Go ahead, Council Halverson.
I'll be honest, I came in here, I was willing and ready to go to shut this down, but I think this is, if we're already paying for it, like you said, let's get the options, let's see what it is, then we'll know. But I'm gonna, my own personal standpoint, boy, they're gonna have to be good to make this go forward, because this is really it's not really what I'm for. So yes, I'll move the motion forward if somebody wants to.
Okay, so we have a mover. We need a seconder. We don't know we won't know for sure until we see it. And it's not going to it's of no monetary loss to us to see the concepts that they'll present to us. Absolutely.
I would be willing to go through with further refining the two options, but also adding the proposed park option. I don't think I'd be willing to not see that as one of the options to come forward. Yeah.
Well, I would think that if we got to the point where we didn't like those two options, then we'd pursue, obviously we wouldn't move forward with either one. So then we would, explore the park option. I mean, that's not, I don't think you need a concept for a park. Park's pretty straightforward. It can be as is for the park. It can be developed into something special for a park. It's up to whatever council or future councils would like to do with that area, but I do think it's important that we see this through at least, to a design stage, and then, whether it goes up to public consultation, that's be up to us. Councilor Halverson?
I know we have a motion on the floor here, but I just one last question.
Well, not really, because we don't have a seconder yet.
Oh, yeah, right. Fair enough. Good point. I guess, Arthur, any thoughts on how long it would be until we see the redefined designs, options, whatever the hell options these are, 4, 3, and B, pardon me, my language there, 3 and 4.
My guess would be anywhere between 4 and 5 weeks.
Okay, we have a mover. Do we have a seconder? Okay, we do have a seconder. Any further discussion on this motion? Council Sanford?
Can I just make a comment? I'm with Councillor Halverson, and I'm not too struck on having to go back out to revise things that we've spent a considerable length of time on getting in place in the context of our policies and so on, right? The land use bylaws. So I would have really liked to have seen something that fit within the current bylaw that would have supported the development there, as opposed to us having to go back out in relation to that. However, to Deputy Mayor Mosier's point, we have requested the designs. And I do agree it's important for us to have the designs fleshed out. If we don't do anything with the designs, we can revert back to exploring park options, right? But at least this will answer and support us to answer the questions around the design concepts in that particular location and our work with Parks Canada that's coming up. So thank you.
Thank you. And from my perspective, I think the important part here is I've seen so many cocktail napkin designs for different parts of the town here and there, and this really will show us what is actually possible to do here and what's not. And then we can deem if it's acceptable and move forward. So anyway, no more comments. We will I'll look to call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the community grants, the allocation of the funds. Do we have a staff report on that as well? Or is that just to confirm what was already in our budget in Schedule A?
I do have a brief report through the chair. This is a report to council with regards to community grants. The town of Lunenburg accepts applications annually with a deadline of March 31st. There's a budgeted amount of $32,000 approved for the community grants program for the fiscal year 2023-24. Of this amount, $20,000 is allocated to applications, $8,000 towards traffic control services, and $4,000 for the Brighter Day capital campaign for the South Shore Regional Hospital. First year of the 5 years for a total grant of $20,000 for our regional hospital. The chart in Schedule A provides an overview of the requested applications, including the names of the organizations, notes regarding the requests, whether they qualify for the town's under the town's policy, and their requested amount. And staff has a proposed motion for council's consideration in the report. Thank you.
Any further questions for Arthur? Councilor Hamilton?
Thanks, Arthur. Just a quick question on how why some requests were fully funded and others were not. I noticed as an example, the Canadian Dory Racing Association applied for 2,000 and got 500. where other organizations, say the dog park, got 1,000, or asked for 1,000 and received 1,000. I mean, understanding there's $33,000 or so in requests and only 20,000 to allocate, but how were those decisions made?
Through the chair, staff went back and looked at last year's granting programs, and if they applied for the same amount, they would get 100% of that amount. If they applied for more, then we usually grant the same amount that we did back in previous years. So that's why you see the discrepancy there.
Okay, any further questions for Arthur? Council Sanford?
I'm just looking at the chart with the funding on it, and I thought earlier I had noticed that we were allocating funding to someone, and I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing where. Somebody who traditionally receives funding, but perhaps hadn't made the application. Did anybody else see that? No, it's just me. But we were suggesting that they generally apply each year, but hadn't. And that we support them with funds.
Arthur, you want to comment on that?
Through the chair, as council may know, usually some applications do come late
Right.
through the year. And we do have $420 left over that will be at council's discretion for that very nature. Like if they do come in late, at least we have a little bit of money left over there.
I was in support of doing that, but what I wanted to suggest is that, and I'm not seeing it, it's like it disappeared. I did read it. I didn't just make this up, right? But I noted that the Legion hadn't submitted for their Remembrance Day service. So I was wondering if we could also include them, because Remembrance Day will come. And unfortunately, they haven't remembered to submit their funding application. So I was wondering if we could include them in this as well.
So I was working with Ms. Cunningham when we were working on the grants, and we spoke about Remembrance Day. That traditionally would probably fall under that traffic control amount that we had
Okay.
talked about, so it will be covered through
Okay,
there.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Anyone willing to move that motion? Moved by Councillor Duggan, seconded by Councillor Halverson. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We have item 9.4, bylaw to repeal. We have a draft motion on the floor. Is there any comments here from our CAO?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's pretty self-explanatory. However, I want to give a bit of an overview. As we move through some of the bylaws that we have on record, some are incredibly outdated and some are no longer applicable. For example, the automated machines bylaw. Towns do not regulate automated machines such as pop machines, snack machines, and coin laundry. So we're going through our files and grabbing bylaws like that to have them repealed if we have no authority over them. So the list you see before you is, I think this is the second set, but this is just simply first reading. That's here for some clarity. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
So we have a mover for the motion. Council Halverson, seconder. I don't know who went first. Council Sanford, I'll give that one to you. Any discussion on the motion?
I just on a personal note, I always love looking at these old bylaws and it's like a snapshot into our history, see why and how this came about. So the jail is fantastic. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, sometimes our history embarrasses us too. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried. Public works status, public works capital status update. Tyson, I can let this hear about camp.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Moshe. For the record, my name's Tyson Joyce. I'm the town engineer We wanted to give council an update on the status of capital work so far this financial year. This report is for information only. So starting with our town general portfolio. So the overhead door at the Blue Barn, that's been supplied and installed in place. Minor hitch to start, but working well. Public Works, currently we have the Tannery Road sidewalk tender out for the construction of the sidewalk along Tannery Road. So that was released on May 23, closes later this week on Friday, with construction planned for the summer. We have the Green Street sidewalk replacement work. So that tender has been prepared and is scheduled to follow the Tannery Road concrete work or sidewalk work in the summer, late summer, early fall. We also have the flashing beacon lights, the first stage of that. So hopefully you've noticed around town, the 4 sets that have been installed along Victoria and Falkland and Lincoln across from the daycare. So we're currently in sort of a commissioning phase of that. The solar panels, just getting those charged up and ready, but we're working through with the supplier there to make sure they're fully functional. Moving on to the wastewater utility. So we had the UV upgrades project included in the capital budget, but with the wastewater treatment plant upgrade coming online since that budget was approved, the UV upgrades will become part of the larger scope. We have our Fournier Consulting. So we have a site visit scheduled with Fournier for mid-July. Fournier supply us with the polymer that reacts with our sludge, and the intention is that they help us with that and also the operation of our press. So that should lead to improvements in those drier months where we really struggle. And then we have our drilled well for the biofilter. So an RFQ, which is a request for quotation, was issued for this item earlier this year, but it has come in over the approved budget. Staff are reviewing any alterations that can be made to the scope to reduce the cost, but retain the intended value. So we're still working on that. And last but not least, we'll move on to the water utility. So we have our Harbourview Morash Loop, which is an intended improvement to our water system. So the tender closed on May 23rd for that project. Staff are currently reviewing. From our initial review, there appears to be a budget risk associated with that project, but we have some more work to do in terms of the assessment. We have our repair to the spillway out at Dares Lake. So the consultant we're working with has submitted the details for the Nova Scotia environment permit that'll be needed to perform the work. Tender is intended to be released in early June. It's likely that'll come out next week. We just had some finishing touches to put on when this report was written, but we're very close. And that work will need to be performed in the summer because that's what the NSE permit will require. We have our solar array at the water treatment plant. So again, the design was to be completed in early June. We're at 90% now. We just have our geotechnical inspection to do, waiting on some locates for that. And the tender should shortly follow the completion of that. During this initial design phase, originally the scope we thought would be a combination of ground mounted units where the old reservoir used to be sort of at the top of the parking lot, and also roof mounted. But we found that we can get greater efficiency by just going with a ground mounted system, and it should simplify the install a little bit. So that's what we're pursuing. We have the cleaning system at the Dares Lake intake. So our preliminary design and cost estimate has been completed. Again, unfortunately, it seems like there's a budget risk associated with this project, but we're exploring cost saving techniques again. And then we have our membrane replacement, which is at the water treatment plant. So staff are working with our consultant and supplier to coordinate the membrane replacement work. And this is scheduled for late fall, early winter, when the demand for water at the plant is lesser. Within the report, I've included a couple of photographs as well. That concludes the report, unless there are any questions.
Thank you, Tyson. Councilor Halverson, you have a question?
I just, through the chair, Tyson, could you just expand a little bit on when you talk about the budget risks, for example, at the Dares Lake intake? What are we talking about here?
Through the chair to Councillor Halverson. So with the budget risk, I think we were talking about the cleaning system at the Dares Lake intake. So that's a system where our intake that's out in the lake, rather than we find, especially during the summer months, we get more debris building up on the screens and that kind of thing. So the pneumatic cleaning system from onshore out to the end and blows air and stops as much debris building up. So staff came with the budget in mind. Unfortunately, the industry is still dealing with the supply, a combination of things, and it's hard to put it down to any one thing, but we have supply chain, we have labor shortages, and just unfortunately, the supply demand balance is not in our favor right now. So again, this budget risk is perceived from the consultant's estimate as well. So consultant estimates are good as a guide for us, but when it comes time to tender the work, those go out the window somewhat. The best way for us is if we have the competition in the tendering and people are hungry for the work. It's just that's a real challenging mountain to climb right now.
Just one last question regarding the cleaning system. Any risk at all to the water quality or to damage of any other components of the system if that cleaning system can't be addressed this summer?
No, I don't feel there's any concerns to our process. It's an improvement that's been identified for a number of years. I think, I've just been here for the year now, but I think it's just an improvement that would certainly help our team and maybe take some resources, allow us to reallocate, because we do spend time cleaning the screens and that's a very manual process now. So there'd be a value add to us there immediately, but I don't think there's any risk in terms of the water that gets supplied to the town.
Any other questions for Tyson? I have just one little one, Tyson, because the Tannery Road sidewalk, as you know, is near and dear to my heart. When you issue the tender, how many weeks of work do you anticipate that to be to completion?
That's a really good question, and I'm kind of loath to put limitations on contractors, because it's in the quicker it goes, there's incentive for them both in their resources moving on to the next job and likely in the profit they make, provided that the quality is met. So we are in a tight part of town though, and traffic and pedestrians, active businesses along their residents. So I would say from when construction starts, we're probably in the 6 to 8 week ballpark, but I would feel a lot more comfortable looking at the contractor's schedule and how they plan to execute the work. But that kind of ballpark, I think, Deputy Mayor.
But overall, no risk of not being completed within this construction season?
Provided we get the tenders, I would expect it is.
Thank you. Any further questions from Tyson? Oh, Susan, go ahead.
You just reminded me, thank you. I did make a note here when I was looking at this through the chair, Tyson, I'm wondering, is it like I'm thinking about the timelines for when we're doing these, and Peter's point, yeah, Tannery Road, we really need that done. But I'm thinking about how busy it is over there and it's so narrow. So I was wondering, would it be in our best interest to consider having Green Street done first in the summer? And then Tannery Road, summer, fall, like it's just flipping them, in the report, the scheduling of when we were thinking about doing them, only because of the less traffic in summer, fall than full on in summer on Tannery Road. Like I'm thinking about traffic over to the golf course, everywhere, is over to Lightship, all of it, right? It's going to be pretty crowded on Tannery Road in the summer. Thoughts?
Through the chair to Councillor Sanford. I think you make a good point there, but we've also got Blue Nose Academy right there too. And if school isn't in, then that removes a hazard as well. So yeah, it's there's no real ideal time. We just kind of have to get on with the work, and yeah, the Tannery Road work, I think within the tender, the contractor nominates sort of how many weeks from award they have. So that sort of gives them, there's a potential cost savings for us maybe in providing them with that option, and the value there for them in not holding them hard and that kind of thing. So maybe you're right though, but I can make pros and cons for any time.
Thanks, Tyson. Okay, the only thing left in business is we have two in-camera items, so I look for a motion. Oh yeah, forgot about the thing that I brought up. Okay, yes, public engagement. I believe, Susan, you wanted to speak to this, so I'll let you go ahead.
I was just having conversations with Deputy Mayor Mosier about public engagement, and I know that folks are keen to speak with council, and council, I've never known a time when councillors aren't speaking with community. So I'm thinking if it would serve the community better, that perhaps we have a standing time on our agenda for community to speak, share your thoughts, comments on the matters at hand. We would welcome your input. And so I had requested that perhaps we have time, standing time on every agenda at council meetings that could facilitate that process to happen. So that's what I'm proposing.
Thanks, Susan. Council Sanford, sorry. I'll just look maybe to the CAO, maybe see what, maybe you could bring forward some suggestions for us for their next meeting or something along that line.
Through the chair, Deputy Mayor, as well as Councillor Sanford, it's quite easy to accomplish, to be quite honest. A lot of our colleagues across the province do a similar standing item. What we would need to do, certainly at either at the start or at the end, we need to put some, of course, the standard timelines of 5 minutes, and there's no real, I want to say, limit of what the public could speak with when they share their concerns with you as the elected body. And the speaker or the resident would need to register with the clerk either before or the day of. So we have their name and contact information, because if there's an instance where they're seeking information, we'll need to have a way to get back in touch with them, because as great as this team is, they don't have all the answers all the time. So we would need to be able to get back in touch with folks, but it's fairly straightforward. So we could certainly implement it for the next council meeting.
Okay, well, thank you. So we'll look forward to that. You'll have, obviously some suggestions for us and a motion that we could approve that. All right, thank you. And then the last thing is in cameras. There's two items there to be in camera. So I look for a motion to move in camera under personnel acquisitions, municipal property, all those things. Anyone willing to move that motion? Councillor Duggan, seconded. Councillor Sanford, all in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. We'll take a 10-minute break and we'll reconvene. Thank you.